Hey, BassGeek here, and it's 6 Minute Sunday. So what is 6 Minute Sunday? 6 Minute Sunday is where I take questions from you. Make sure you put them in the comment section below. I pick one question. It may be that a group of you guys are asking this question, that question stands out, which is actually what happened this week. Or I just pick one in particular question and I try to answer that question in under 6 minutes. And anybody that knows me, if you've been around for a long time, you know I'm long-winded. And you know, it might be easy for a lot of people not to be able to talk for 6 minutes straight. It's pretty hard for me. Generally, I've done it one time, and I think we've done like 4 or 5 of these challenges. So, all right. So one other thing I love to do with the 6 Minute Sunday, I love for you guys to send me your pictures. Please send those to my email. It is in the description of the videos. Send them to the email. It's a little easier for me to keep up with stuff when instead of they being scattered out through all the PMs, DMs, and whatever other M's there are out there. The email's a little easier for me to keep up with those pictures. But the reason and how you qualify to be able to be featured on the channel is it has to be a technique, a bait. You know, maybe it's a Rapala jerk bait of, you know, that you've seen me use, or some sort of ledge head. The bugs are driving me crazy. Maybe it can be a technique, or maybe it can be a certain product that you've used and it's helped you catch some fish. So just shoot me a picture of you and your fish in any sort of Instagram, or if you have a YouTube channel, go ahead and throw that in the information of the email and I'll shout you out. If I miss you though, guys, because it is, I'm telling you, it's scattered out everywhere right now, just make sure you holler at me. I will definitely put you in the next video, and I'll pre-apologize if I do miss you. I've been keeping up with it pretty good, but it's been about a month and a half since I've done one of these, so forgive me. Like I said, work is still not letting up. Literally just got an email about having, well, let's just say a lot of overtime. Okay, anyway, back on subject. So this week's 6 Minute Sunday is a question that several of you actually asked in the mystery tackle box video that we did just last week. And it's about leaders. There was a lot of different ways that it was asked. Braid to fluoro, how long of a leader should they have? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and answer those questions when it comes to leaders and how I use them. All right, so let's put 6 minutes on the clock. Let's get started. So let's start with baitcasters. Baitcasters, I can tell you 90% of the time I don't use a leader. I use braid backing. I don't use mono to back that. I just either tie it to one of the holes. Generally what I do though, even if it's got holes in the spool, I'll take a little piece of black tape and put it around and then spool it on. That keeps it from slipping. You got to make sure you spool the braid tight, but generally I'm going to put braid, as much braid as I can, and then I'm going to put about 2 casts worth of fluorocarbon on there. So I'm never going to cast down to the knot. Once I get to the knot, I do tie a good knot, and I will cast it out if I'm in a hurry, you know, maybe a tournament tournament situation. But generally, once I get down to the knot, I cut it and tie on another 2 casts worth of fluorocarbon. Okay, and what that basically does is it allows me, you know, a leader, you cut and tie a short leader, you're constantly throwing that fluorocarbon away. 2 casts worth, you can cut and tie, cut and tie, cut and tie several times, and you don't have to worry about it. And it's also going to save you money. You know, braid never dulls out, dies, you know, whatever, especially if you never get to where it's being cast. You know, it's basically good for as long as you leave it on there. So there is a couple of exceptions to that rule. The very first exception is my flipping stick. Now this is my Luz LFS, guys. I've used this thing forever, and this is a carbon light You know, Carbon Light 2, man, this has been a heck of a flipping combo. You can see by the looks of that reel, it's done some work. So when it comes to my flipping outfit, I do the same exact thing with the braid. I put the braid on, but when you're pitching, really not flipping, pitching, you know, I only need, you know, a few feet of line. So I'll put 2 to 3 pitches worth of line on there, which, I mean, honestly is probably going to be maybe 30 yards if it's that much. And that way, again, it just keeps me from having to replace a lot of line once I get down. Now, I don't fish a lot of grass, and so I don't like when I'm pitching for my braid to be coming across the wood, which is 90% of the stuff that I'm pitching, because you get a very unnatural sound, and if that tree's got bark or it's softwood, that braid can really saw itself in there and get hung and get snagged a little too easily. Plus, you know, guys, I use fluorocarbon because I fish a lot of super clear lakes. You know, the lake that I'm out on today, it's 12 to 15 feet, it's 10 to 15 feet 90% of the time of water visibility. And I'm talking about water visibility where you can see the rocks on the bottom in 15 foot. So, you know, I don't use a leader a lot. I don't want that braid coming through the school that I'm fishing for. Now, the exception again is this is one of them, and the reason I do that, again, I'm pitching, the braid's never coming off. But for me to cut off a, you know, 30 yard, 20 yard, 10 yard, probably more like a 10 yard section, if I do go fish grass, I've already got the braid on there. So now I can go ahead and use the same rod and reel setup to go flip grass, and I'm not wasting a ton of line either. The other exception is Topwater. Now, again, I don't really use a leader per se. I'll kind of do the same thing, but I want about a cast worth of monofilament to my braid, to be honest. Again, fishing a lot of clear water, and I just don't want that little spaghetti noodle coming across the surface before my bait gets to those fish or gets overhead of those fish. And if I'm throwing a topwater, I'm throwing a topwater because I know, or I realize, or I think those fish are feeding up already. So I don't want to give them a warning before we get there. So I'm throwing generally low vis green because, well, you've seen the water in the videos that I fish. It's kind of got this really dark green hue to it. Now, on that, I can still get away with, you know, probably a 15-foot leader and still use braid in some other lakes that I fish. Now, that really is about it for the baitcasters. Now, on to the spinning reel, and you'll notice something right away that is very different. And by the way, guys, this is an awesome drop shot setup. I also use this setup for Damiki rigging, and it is outstanding. Now, there's a lot of different things I do with spinning gear, but I'm going to give you my standard setup. So the standard setup with spinning gear is generally I want some sort of high vis, because the line is so small on a sunny day or a cloudy day, or heck, any day, because I'm getting old. The fluorocarbon can be super hard to see. So I like a good high vis. You know, you may like green or pink or yellow, you know, whatever it is, whatever color you can find that makes you happy. As far as the braid goes, now I do cast the braid, so I'll go a few sizes up, you know, 10 12 pound in braid because it's generally the same as 6, 8, or 10 pound in the fluorocarbon that I'm using. Again, there is an exception to this, but 90% of what I do with a spinning reel, generally I'm going to put somewhere between a just short of a cast worth. If I'm fishing really deep and vertical, I don't, especially in super clear water, like the Damiki rig, I may put about a cast worth. So it may be up to 50 or 60 feet, I guess a drop worth, depending on how deep. If I'm casting a Ned rig, generally about a 15-foot leader. Now you can get away with whatever you want using braid, but what I generally want is long enough, 10 to 15 feet. And guys, generally, I just pull it out of the spool and hold my arms out, and we'll call that 15 feet. I don't get overly, I'm not laying a tape measure out there. Don't overthink things, guys. But generally, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do about a 15-foot leader. Now, as far as the knot goes, and I use this across the board, and I know the FG knot is the standard bearer in, Grand Poobah of, knots. But, if I've got to have 2 Oompa Loompas, half of Santa's reindeer team, the Easter Bunny, and 2 nuns to tie it, I'll just keep tying the good old uni to uni knot and go on. The uni to uni knot is what I use, and I do have a video for that. I'll put that link to that video in the description. I also put it right up here wherever the little voodoo thing pops up. Generally, that's the knot that I use. I'm comfortable with it. It works for me, but I will tell you something. And I feel like this, when it comes to fluorocarbon and braid, this is pretty much a standard. When that knot gets down to 5 to 8 feet, I don't like to let it get to 5 to 8 feet. When it gets down to 5 to 8 feet, if you've got your drag set right, you may be able to get away with it. But I have broke a lot of knots setting the hook. And the biggest problem is it doesn't matter if it's an FG knot, a blood knot, I set the hook. Even on a drop shot, I know I shouldn't. It's just a bad habit, and I need to, teach myself better ways. I know, I get it. But I set the hook. On a Ned rig, I set the hook. I'm not, like a jig, but generally my first reaction is, oh! So it is what it is. So for me, what ends up happening is the shock, because you've got the braid, which has no stretch whatsoever, or very, very little, and you've got the fluorocarbon, which has no real elasticity. So what ends up happening is when you stretch fluorocarbon, it doesn't come back, unlike monofilament. So if you've got a short leader and you hit that fish, you're going to snap that knot every time. And I learned that the hard way about 2 years ago. So, make sure, I would recommend not having it under 5 feet. You get down to that 5, 6. To me, I cut it when it's at 8 foot, and generally I'll put 15 to 20 foot on a leader for my spinning reels. Again, the other exception is topwater. So topwater generally, and truthfully, I can go either way. I'll put mono on there. I'll put probably, a cast worth of mono, and that'll be about it. So once it starts getting to about half of that, I'll put another cast worth of mono on there. But most of the time, I'm not working, walking baits and stuff. So about the only thing I throw with, topwater wise with, a spinning reel is poppers generally. And guys, like I said, go check out Lou's. This is the Orange Crush. This is a great reel, and this is the custom speed stick. And it's awesome. This is an awesome combo. I use it for a ton of stuff and plan on picking up a bunch more of these combos. This is actually the drop shot special, and I'm telling you, it's awesome. Ah, crap. Well, as always, I'm long-winded. You know, we didn't get to make it, but anyway, I hope this answers a bunch of questions as far as leaders go on your gear. All right, guys, so we're going to get to it right now. Like I said, questions and comments in the comment section below. I appreciate the heck out of the support you guys show me. Hey, for everybody that's watched it this far, I'm working on a 25,000 subscriber giveaway, so be prepared. It's going to be big if I can do it. I got to pull it off. It's a lot of work, but it's going to be big. Now, like I was saying, questions and comments in the comment section below. Ask those questions for next 6 Minute Sunday. And yeah, guys, I know sometimes I answer them in the comment section. I just can't help myself because I love to talk about fishing. So forgive me, I'll go in depth later on. Just because I answer it to you doesn't mean I'm not going to use it either. Like it if you like it. Make sure you ring that bell so you get the notifications when these videos come out. And you guys rock. All right, guys, let's pick who won this month's mystery tackle box. We'll copy the URL. Go ahead and throw it in. Get all the comments. 150 original, unique comments. Let's hit start. All right, Ken Starring. So it looks like you won. You did comment underspin. Great video as usual. Thank you, and thank you, Ken, for watching, for hanging out with BassGeek and all of us. And I will leave a comment, get you my email, and send the box out as soon as you shoot me your address.